You may have heard this story last week. I think a lot of us kind of looked at this and smiled until we realized, no, this is serious. Maple syrup is like, that's our heritage here in Quebec, right? We are the king of maple syrup producers in the world. It's a very serious business. It is very seriously controlled, by the way. And then we find out through an undercover investigation that one particular maple syrup producer or importer has actually been cutting his maple syrup with 50% cane sugar. No, that's not allowed. That's not what you're paying for. And as I said, it may not seem like a big deal, but it is in Quebec because this is a huge industry in this province. And obviously something like this has the potential to taint the industry. Peter Kuitenbrower is a journalist, registered professional forester, and author of, believe it or not, a book called Maple Syrup, A Short History of Canada's Sweetest Obsession, and is on the line. Mr. Kuitenbrower, thanks for being here this afternoon. Look, I don't want to overplay this, but this is serious, right?
I would say so, Aaron. I mean, as you point out, Quebec produces about 75% of the world's maple syrup, and there's a great deal of pride in the fact that when you buy a can of maple syrup, it says on the side of it, 100% pure maple syrup. And not only that, but there is a law in the books of Parliament that's over a century old that says in Canada it is illegal to mix syrup with anything else and pass it off, not only to pass it off as syrup, but you can't, for example, tell people that you have something that has a syrup flavor, but that it's got some sugar in it. You can only sell maple syrup that is 100% pure in Canada.
How did you find out about the story that I just sort of related here, and what was your reaction when you did find out?
Well, it's funny because, like you mentioned, I have this new book out about maple syrup, and so a lot of people in my friends and family circle are kind of keyed in, certainly because it's also sugaring off season right now, and I guess that's why, Enquête, the Radio-Canada show, landed the story around now, but it was hilarious. My inbox you lit up like a Christmas tree, like everybody under the sun. Even my stepfather in California sent me a note saying, hey, because it was in he reads The Guardian from the UK. They had a story about it, so it's a big story in my world.
So beyond it being a big story, and it is obviously, as you said, in Quebec, we understand now there's a move afoot to try to create a class action lawsuit here against this one producer. One part of the story, though, I want to mention is once they did did you see the video, by the way, of them confronting this particular person? So it turns out that later on, and this person who's alleged to have done this obviously is aware of what's going on, some of the cans that he has been selling to grocery stores, and this is, by the way, I understand, not just in Quebec, but in Ontario as well, actually have they taped over his name to show coming from someplace else and not him. And now there's a class action lawsuit, at least the fact that they're asking to approve a class action lawsuit over this fake syrup is underway. And I wonder where that goes. Where do you think this goes from here?
Well, good question. Apparently he said that he's boasting that he sold over 1 million cans of this stuff, which is interesting because he was able to find a loophole in the rules because, as they said in the report, most syrup leaves the sugar shacks in Quebec in 45-gallon drums, sort of same size as an oil drum. But you're allowed to sell it directly to the grocery stores in small cans, and those never go through the classing and inspection system of the Quebec maple syrup producers. And the Centre Serre is the non-governmental, nonprofit that looks after these kinds of things. So they got around the thing, and they got a lot of syrup, I guess, into people's grocery carts and onto their shelves. And it's interesting because I was just noticing also on the show they mentioned a can that was like starting to expand. And it's funny because a friend of mine in Montreal had sent me a note, and photos of a can that was the same problem, like the sort of like fermenting and seems to be like almost like it's going to blow, like really like swelling up. And so I don't know if it seems to be related perhaps to the same issue of in contamination and impure maple syrup, but certainly there are a lot of people, it seems like a lot of consumers who have a pretty good case to get some money back for whatever they thought was maple syrup.
Maybe you can just explain, as I said off the top, and I think you just sort of mentioned this a minute or so ago, there are rules here in Quebec. Anyone just can't decide to go ahead and become a maple syrup producer, right? There are tests, there's purity tests. How did he get around this from what you understand?
Well, so the thing is that right, exactly. Like about 90% of the maple syrup that gets produced in the province gets sent through to bottling plants or sent to the strategic reserve of maple syrup for years when the supply is lower. And so you on a bad year when the weather's not right, you can take syrup out of the reserve. So most syrup goes that route, but there is a loophole in the rules, Aaron, which says that if you are selling syrup directly from your sugar shack, and these sugar shacks have canning equipment in the sugar shack to can it in those 540 ml cans, and those never get systematically inspected on their way to the grocery store shelf.
So that's how you get around it, or perhaps how he got around it.
It appears to be that way, although in my book I mentioned that the Centre Serre does at random go around even to roadside stands in Quebec and pick up about 800 cans every year and test it, sort of in a kind of a randomized way to make sure that it's the real stuff. But it's interesting that in this case, he managed to move a lot of maple syrup, and you'd think it would have raised some eyebrows because, as they say in the show, producers know they can't sell a can for $5. There's no way. I mean, yourself, it takes 40 liters of sap to make a liter of syrup. It's an incredibly labor-intensive and energy-intensive process to make maple syrup, and that's why it's a bit pricey, but it's worth the price for the real stuff.
For those of you listening to this and already are wishing you had real maple syrup and would like to know more, our guest book is called Maple Syrup, A Short History of Canada's Sweet Obsession. Can you buy this in a bookstore? Are you going online to buy it? Where do you buy it?
Yeah, sure. You can go to Indigo.
Okay.
You can go to Chapters, to your favorite local independent bookstore is what I would recommend. It's nice to help them out. Yeah, it's for sale all over the place.
Hey, I thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. Thanks again.
You're quite welcome. Have a good day.
You too. So there you go. We'll see where this maple syrup caper ends up. But as he just alluded to, and I was not aware of the number, if this guy was selling millions or $1 million worth, this might be a bigger story than we originally thought.
The newest tracks. Let's go. New music. And the next big thing.
Always on the new music first.
Your first place to hear it all.
'Cause you gon' like it, love it, wanna play it twice. Playing now.
iHeart New Music. Your digital station for brand new drops, fresh finds, and tomorrow's bangers.
I think we need something new.
Discover iHeart New Music. Always fresh, always first. Stream now on the free iHeartRadio app.